I titled today's mind map, Unity in Prosperity. This conversation is stimulated from some Neville Goddard quotes as a result of some reflections on the book that I discussed on Thursday, which is Charles Fillmore's book, Prosperity. And it's also deeper as far as emphasis goes in relation to prosperity when it comes to unity, as in how are we bringing forth our prosperity? Some way, somehow, things move, people move, environments change to reflect that prosperity. Neville calls this the bridge of incidents. We play the theater to bring forth the prosperity. That's the journey. What we want to do is have a deeper relationship with people, with environment, with information, a deeper integrated relationship. We are one with it, as we talked about in the last video. And seeing this connection is very important. For example, one of the things that I found on my journey in consulting is that people show up ready to receive the information of the problems that I had once gone through, or the challenges that I had once gone through in which I had overcome. Some way, somehow, they seem to show up asking for the solution. Their challenge, their circumstance, what they're experiencing seems to be parallel to what I had experienced. And so the conversation flows based on the experience. What I also found is that as this journey continues to higher levels of revealing prosperity, is if more challenges show up, the one thing that I have to remind myself is that the challenge that I'm going through is one day going to be something that someone is going to show up and ask me to help them with, as in they're probably going to go through the same thing. And this is what we go through in not just consulting, but leadership, relationships, friendships, and so forth. We seem to play out the same theater that others are also playing out on this journey of life. And that's the unity right there. And one of the things that I had learned in the earlier stages of entrepreneurship is that if you can solve a problem or a challenge in the marketplace, people will pay you for that, provided that they're looking for that solution. And all you had to do was communicate that you had the solution. We learned this from direct response marketing and consultative selling. So, as the journey continued, I actually saw the parallels. For example, when I got into my IT business in 2009, it was a result of growing up fixing computers. I'd break them and I'd fix them. I would install software. I would uninstall it. I would figure out the architecture of how things work. So it got me a job in corporate, and then I ended up excelling in there and then translated it over to helping companies solve their IT issues. The same was said to be true during the journey of consulting and leadership. I found that all I did was continue to overcome my own challenges, and people would show up experiencing those same challenges in which I'd be able to discuss and share my experiences. We talked about this a few videos ago. Feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I've been there before. Here's what I found. This is the unity. Through the solutions that are provided, you receive compensation, the prosperity. This is a theatrical performance of prosperity in relation to unity, since we're all connected, since this is all one. Now, in order to see these connections and value these connections, and we all experience this, this is not just my experience. Reflect back on your journey. You also have this experience. People show up ready to ask you how to overcome the challenges that you once had in your life. And you're able to reveal, based on your experience, how to overcome it. And you're rewarded for it. Maybe you get paid for it, or you receive prosperity in different ways. Prosperity doesn't necessarily mean money. Prosperity is individualized. We give the word prosperity a meaning from within, like with all other words. And prosperity means who you really are. which means you are the source and also the recipient of prosperity. So Charles Fillmore says this really well to emphasize this, and we're going to weave it into some Neville quotes. He says, "It is the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw unto ourselves. If we would draw to us love, we must be love, be loving and kind. If we would have peace and harmony in our environment, we must establish it within ourselves." So we're talking about embodying it through our being, living the philosophy, and internalizing it via the inner dialogues, inner conversations that reflect the ideal state of mind. That's one with the vision. As Neville states, no pun intended, we're going through states of mind. We are transcendent to the states. We select the states, although a lot of times we may unconsciously select our states. What we want to do is persist in the state of the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And we want to do this by understanding the unity and not creating unnecessary inner resistance, which is revealed as resistance of theater that we play out with each other. And that's because we don't see it from the perspective of what Charles Fillmore discusses in this quote. If we would draw to us love, we must be love, be loving and kind. Now this means understanding that we are made up of individual minds. You've heard me say this a number of times. We're individual minds related to the universal mind. One mind externalized as individual minds, playing out the theater from our own internal state of mind. So he says, the man of wealth and the poor man are the same being. The poor state, the wealthy state are only states. The man who occupies the poor state is an individual that never ceases to be that individual. But if he falls into the state of poverty, well, then you can call him a poor man. But he doesn't differ from the man who falls into the state of wealth. For the man in the state of wealth, he's not any better. He has money, lots of money, if he's a fabulously wealthy person. But that doesn't put him in a spiritual sense beyond the man that is poor. So we're wearing states of mind, and we're identifying with these states of mind. What we want is to be more dynamic with these states of mind, more lucid, fluid with these states of mind. The reason is because if we overly identify with certain states of mind, we start to see conflict and separation with others, environment, circumstance, information. We fail to see the unity that in the core of the essence, we are awareness. All one, awareness, individualized, and identifying with different states. And the change starts within ourselves. So what do? We represent and maintain the state during challenge, as mentioned earlier. If a person's goal is prosperity in relation to entrepreneurship, then they're looking to create products or services that can benefit the lives of others. That's the theater. A lot of times, the solutions that we provide are the solutions that have worked for ourselves. And as a result, it's easier for us to communicate about the solution to others. We're excited about it because we know it works. People show up ready to receive those solutions, and we communicate. We maintain true to the vision, and which is really about maintaining the state of mind. And they receive the solution, and they share with us compensation, in which we call prosperity. But as we have been discussing, the prosperity starts within. It's a state of mind. And so what we want to do is recognize that we are selecting states, and we are identifying with these states. And we have a preference in the matter of what the state is that we choose to occupy. At times, however, we may identify with certain states that we would call undesirable. For example, he says to constantly kick and complain against the limitations of poverty while remaining poor in consciousness is to play the fool's game. And he further states, changes cannot take place from that level of consciousness, for life is constantly outpicturing all levels. So to kick and complain and to fight against circumstances or perceived limitations is to identify with a state of mind in which we would call conflict, which is not in harmony with unity, which is not related to the truth that we are the prosperity that we seek. And from that pure awareness in which we're released from identification with thought, identification with state, identification with identity, self-image, we can then reconnect back to the ideal self-image or ideal state of mind. Or as Neville says, reimagine or imagine it in an ideal way, because once we imagine, we identify with it and we move down that thread. He says, now if everything in my world depends upon a state of consciousness, it would be the height of insanity to seek the thing before I actually fix within myself the state on which the things depend. For that which requires a state of consciousness to produce its effect cannot be affected without such a state of consciousness. The only way to change your expressions of life is to change your consciousness. For consciousness is the reality that eternally solidifies itself in the things round about you. Man's world, in its every detail, is his consciousness outpictured. Your environment and all within it reflects that which you are in consciousness. As long as you continue to be that in consciousness, so long you will continue to outpicture it in your world. So we want the change to happen in consciousness. How do we do it? Well, we release from the reactivity which seems to bind us into certain states of mind, in which we say, I don't desire to be in that state of poverty or lack. I want to be in the state of wealth, prosperity. And here's how my prosperity plays out. I imagine myself creating the ideal business, bringing forth value to the lives of others, and as a result of that, receiving compensation for it. You have a imaginal act, as he says. You see yourself doing it. It implies living a certain way, an end. Now, the moment we identify with that in our imagination, and he talks about doing this prior to going to sleep, which is called state akin to sleep, otherwise also referred to as hypnagogic state, in which the overly active, conscious, and perhaps even critical of that ideal outcome is not as apparent and a lot of times excluded out of our consciousness, in which we are then very receptive to what we imagine. And right away when we do that, we notice we feel different. He calls this the feeling of the wish fulfilled. We have identified with that state. We feel that we are in the ideal. And all we have to do is maintain that, to maintain the flow in relation to that on the journey. And then what I mentioned earlier of the story that I just shared, of my experiences, which, by the way, I had many conversations with others who mentor, consult, lead others to produce success. They too had revealed to me that the very same challenges that they had occurred in life, people were showing up and asking them how to overcome those challenges, which is why it's very important to maintain the state of mind, which is reflective of the philosophy which was discussed in many spiritual texts, which is to be, as Charles Fillmore says, it is the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw to us. If we would draw to us love, we must be love. Be loving and kind. If we would have peace and harmony in our environment, we must establish it within ourselves. So how do we feel about the prosperity that is actually ours? We're externalizing it from the state of mind. What do we think about it? How do we relate to it? Well, we just write it out. We note these things, and we can see if there's consistency or inconsistency. I call this cause and effect reflections, which is looking at the effects in the outer world or the effects from our thinking, which reveals our state of mind and what we are identifying with. And by changing this thinking, or changing the relationship to the attributes, by changing our thinking in relation to those attributes, we make the changes in consciousness. And we go back into the ideal state of mind that is one with the vision, which in this regard we're talking about prosperity. He says, your environment and all within it reflects that which you are in consciousness. As long as you continue to be that in consciousness, so long you will continue to outpicture it in your world. The door is your consciousness. To open the door is to become one with that which is knocking by feeling oneself to be the thing desired. What we imagine, what we believe to be true, is what we want to reflect upon. Because this is what we're saying I am too. And as a result of it, from the pure awareness, we identify with it. Now, I like to work with the Robert Dilts logical levels model. Probably heard me mention this many times, and I'll bring it up in reference. On the top, we have a vision. That is the imaginal scene, what I want to identify with. We embody it in the identity, which can be looked at as the state. And then from the identity or the state of mind flows the values and beliefs, the behaviors, the capabilities, and environments. And it works both ways. Because if the environment brings forth reactivity, then we can understand it better. If the behavior brings forth unnecessary tension and reactivity, then we can understand it better to recognize what state we are identifying with and change our relationship to that attribute, or go back into the ideal state of mind through imagining or inner conversation that is reflective of that vision. Simply saying to yourself that you really are the person that you see yourself to be right now, and that the outer world is reflecting accordingly. All of these things change in consciousness. Same is to be said about the capabilities, which are the skills, which is one of the layers. Same is to be said about our values and beliefs. We can identify the inaccurate values and beliefs that seem to bring us into different states of mind and change it so that we can maintain the ideal state of mind. Again, all of this is happening within consciousness. It's within ourselves. We identify, what are we really? We could say we are a soul, a bunch of programming, as well as a body. And we can look at it as the body and the programming are instruments of the soul. So we ask ourselves, what do we truly desire? What does the soul desire? And how does the soul truly want to live? And we change the programming, which facilitates the body, which also facilitates the outer world changes, to bring forth the theater, to bring forth your prosperity. So to further emphasize this, the door is your consciousness, he says. To open the door is to become one with that which is knocking by feeling oneself to be the thing desired, which again ties very nicely, which was discussed in the prosperity video that I released on Thursday, which I recommend watching, in which we're going to discuss it further and weave it into our discussions, because I felt that, as I mentioned in that video, the book was very deep, so much so that I thought maybe I'll discuss it a chapter at a time and weave it all throughout our conversations, because I wanted to be able to capture the magnitude of what he had shared, as well as weave it into the parallels that we've been having in our relationship to the Neville conversations, as well as the other discussions with Charles Hannell, Florence Scovel Shinn, and the other authors that I've been very inspired by, reflecting upon my own journey, because this is the thing about it, is we've got to look at our own experience. These concepts, these experiences have been put together to further dimensionalize our understanding of our own experiences, because we are all going through it. This was another realization that I had as a result of a number of conversations that I had in the last few weeks when I was in Los Angeles, that everybody's pretty much going through the same things at the same time, just maybe the theater's playing out differently. And the change happens within consciousness, so the change happens within ourselves. So as we change ourselves, we notice that the people around us change. And it changes in some sort of theater. So when we see that, okay, the prosperity, for example, we want to translate it over to entrepreneurial prosperity, we tie it back to some of the foundations, principles that we've learned in entrepreneurship, which is very related to this unity perspective, that people are ready to receive the products and services that we have used and benefited from, because they can benefit from it as well. And this could be certain information that we had learned, such as in the consulting space. This can be certain physical products that we've created to solve challenges that we had in our lives, such has been the case with much innovation that has been brought forth, has been a result of a person solving their own challenges, innovating for themselves, and then others ready to receive that innovation. Even in leadership, it's the same thing. We go through processes, we come up with certain mental models, we have certain tools to overcome challenges in our organizations. And then people show up, our team members show up saying, how do I, although they might not say those words exactly, but this is what they're implying, how do I overcome that as well? And then you share it with them, and then they go through the change, and then we get the prosperity from it. It's one way of theatrical performance of revealing the prosperity. There's many different ways to bring forth prosperity. And what we're going to find is that the prosperity is going to play out in how we believe. As the saying goes in the Bible, as you believe, so it shall be done unto you. So let's weave this all together into an affirmation, because the key to it is we want to see that the unity, one with the people, environment, circumstance, and information, the relatability, is contributing to prosperity. And we also want to see, on the flip side, how prosperity is actually the core of who we are. And we're externalizing that prosperity based on a prosperity-based state of mind that we are selecting, which then reveals how this is all one mind externalized. We're going through the same things, just different perspectives. You can say, based on the law of spirit, we draw onto us that is what we represent, which is our state of mind. I understand the outer world expressions, outer world experiences, as indications of revelation of my state of mind. I have the ability to change my state of mind and observe as the outer world experience changes. Through the process, I find a deeper integration and understanding of how the thought processes, the state of mind, reflects itself in my experience with others. I then realize that as I maintain my state of mind of prosperity, that others show up ready to receive the prosperity and return the prosperity to reflect. I realize that giving and receiving is one. I realize that giving and receiving is automatic based on the state of mind. And the state of mind that I choose to express is prosperity. I realize that prosperity was the ideal state of mind and continues to maintain as the ideal state of mind. As a result, I outpicture people, environment, circumstance, and information to reflect the prosperity. I'm able to form the connections between the resources, between the relationships, between the experiences, to bring forth prosperity. I find great happiness and joy doing this, thus maintaining my state of mind. This brings me into deeper degrees of flow and connectedness, which further emphasizes the relationship with all. This helps me further integrate with peace and harmony in my environment, which is first established within myself. Thus, I make my ideal state of mind a priority, and I return to it to reflect accordingly on my day-to-day journey of harmony to realizing my vision. If you'd like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.